Hello.
Hey, brother, how you going?
Hey, great, man. I'm using my earbuds.
Ooh,
Both of them. Hey,
snazzy.
I found them. Oh, how are you?
I'm very good, mate. Missed you.
Yeah, me too. Oh, we've been really through a lot the last couple of weeks moving.
Yeah.
Hey,
How
there's
are you,
Hey,
someone.
sister?
how you doing?
Yeah, great.
I can't hear you.
Oh, she can't hear you. Here,
That's
have an earbud.
well. That's okay. I can see, and that's what matters. I love you.
Yeah, love you too, sister. How you been? You've been working
Well,
hard.
yeah, okay. Yeah, we have. She can't hear you, but yeah, she's been working very hard, and I hear you're all alone now, aren't you?
What?
Are you all alone?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, not in the
Okay.
house, not for a couple of days.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know
Yeah.
what? If you take out this earphone, you can still hear me.
This one?
Yep,
I'm taking it out.
yep,
I hear you on one side.
yeah.
Now they can't. Now no one knows
Yeah, that's
that
it.
I'm wearing it.
See, nobody can
Ah,
see. See, no one can see mine either.
yeah. Sneaky.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
otherwise, we're sitting together, and people are like, "Why are they wearing their earphones?"
Yeah. What's the deal?
Yeah,
They must have bad hearing. Yeah.
yeah. They're listening to music. So,
Mm.
well, you've been through a hideous move, haven't you, bro? Isn't it? The pit's just moving.
Moving is just about one of the worst things that you can do.
Yeah.
Uh, but you know what? The birds are still singing and the sun is shining. I'm okay. I bet it's cold where you are,
It is
isn't
pretty
it?
cold. Yeah,
Yeah.
we've had to become fire people. I've never had to have a fireplace and
Oh.
ordering wood, and my
Huh?
father-in-law brought down a splitter because my little axe wasn't good enough, and I had to start splitting wood, and I have to do all this stuff. Like I have to be like a man. It's not.
Wow.
What's wrong with that?
What's that?
I got to
Yeah.
get my hands
Well,
dirty.
yeah.
So,
Well, watch out for the bugs that live in those woods. I mean, the little bugs that come crawling out, especially those little guys that have all the legs. Watch
yeah,
out.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, to answer your question, it's getting a bit cold. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're having a great time here. I love warm weather, much more than
Mm.
cold. But Phyllis
Yeah.
likes four seasons. Of course, I only believe there's two seasons, and I keep reminding her of that. But because the sun's either above the equator or below the equator, that's it. That's all there is.
Yeah.
There's Kayets and there's Koretz.
Yeah.
But anyway, she likes it because she likes snow, and I don't like snow. You know.
So where are you at now? Is it hot weather or?
Yeah, yeah, we're seeing a lot of hot weather, and in this part of the world, it's really muggy. And in fact, there's fog outside right now. It's so muggy. We're in a cloud. Yeah,
Wow.
it's really humid, very humid.
Yeah. So now that you've moved, you wouldn't have to be going back and forward to the islands. You'd have it all in one place.
Yeah, it's been a sad week. Actually, 2 weeks. We started making decisions some time ago after Chris left. He put our minds on this financial situation, which was continuing to unravel and cave in because of the lovers that are out there, committing their entire lives to destroying my reputation.
Yeah.
They don't know me personally, but it's okay. I love them, and I don't know who they are. But anyway, the thing of it is, the business part of the management of the funds and the donations and people trying to support us just kept dwindling and dwindling and dwindling. And we saw this trend over the last 2 or 3 years, and then it just became severe. We went below the waterline where we were gasping, and we were supporting with the business and the family that was living in the building. And they had to move up north. So they just left a couple of days ago. And the day that they left, we also lost our little kitten because she had to be put to sleep. So Phyllis has suffered that loss. We lost our dog about 2 months before that. So Yahuwah is removing things from our, but it's also simplified. I have, less to do around on the highway because my son Adam is now working pretty much in my place, so I don't have to go in there, but maybe once a week.
Really?
But, yeah, And I'm working very, very hard.
Oh, put that out on the airwaves. Lew's not in the shop.
I am working. Well, I'm working very, very hard on translating from the Hebrew the actual, perfecting the words. In fact, that little 3 pages that I sent to you that I had already, finished?
Yeah.
Well, actually, I'm 40% of the way done, and it's speeding up as I go because I keep correcting and perfecting. Like, take the word that you read in Bereshith or Genesis chapter 1. If you were to look at the words, let me find it here. In the typical translations, you'll be reading along, and it'll say, and God said, let there be light, and so on. And God said, let there be an expanse. Well, what is an expanse? I looked at the Hebrew word, and I see other translations, and I'm consulting, the King James and, the ISR version, all those other ones. I mean, I've got just a stack of them. But what does the Hebrew mean? An expanse, to separate something. Well, guess what? Even the one that I sent you last night, he woke me up in the middle of the night, Yehuda did, and he said, you know what? You ought to make this simple because you're writing this for another generation. Another generation of people after I'm gone, Yehuda willing, if he tarries, will have to read this. And they're going to have to make sense of it in your language. And he's speaking to us in babbling lips. But we want to make sure the babbling is less, it's discernible for people that speak our language. So what he did was he woke me up and he said, you know that word expanse? And I said, yeah. And he said, the word's supposed to be space. Space? Well, yeah, that's it. And so I have to change that. So you see, I'm going through this stuff, waiting for him to teach me. So let me read that text to you real quick.
Yeah.
Well, I'll read it from the translation that I've already, been perfecting. Hold on.
Yeah.
Oh. All right. Let's see. And Elohim set them in the space of the Shamayim to give light on the arets. What set what in the space? The sun and the moon and the stars. Watch this. And to rule over the Yom and over the Lila. That means the day and the night. And to separate the light from the darkness. And Elohim saw that it was good. And there came to be evening, and there came to be morning, the 4th Yom. Now, watch this. I have to go back here and go back to this this verse where it says, oh yeah. In verse 7 of the first chapter of Genesis, or Bereshith. Now the reason we say Bereshith, why do we say Bereshith? Well, it means in the beginning, and what it is, it's the first words, or the first word in this text. So we name the book Bereshith because the first word of the text is Bereshith. And the same thing is true of the book that they call Leviticus, Uikra. It's the first word. That's why it's named that. But anyway, going back to verse 7, it says, and Elohim made the expanse and separated the Mayim, which were under the expanse, from the Mayim, which were above the expanse. Okay, now if you just listen to that 10 times, you're going to go, that's very confusing. You're using the word Mayim. Well, the word Mayim is a stretch. That's a Hebrew word for waters. All right, we can get over that, but we're never going to get over the word expanse. So look at it when I replace the word expanse with the proper English word. And Elohim made the space and separated the Mayim, which were under the space, from the Mayim, which were above the space. So we're talking about waters being separated by a gap, which we call space. And that's what we're talking about. See, we can think of it in numbers of ways. We can think of it as an outer realm that's far, far away where there's water. And then in outer space, there's stars. and then there's water on the surface of the planet. Or we can look at it like water that was above the earth, which was set there in preparation for the Great Flood, and the water of the surface of the planet, which we call the sea or the oceans. And that water in between there was something called a space. Sometimes in the King James, they use the word firmament, which was really confusing.
That's right.
Don't you love that? Well, we're writing for the next generation.
Praise him in the firmament.
Yeah. We're wanting people to understand it and to not be going, man, I just don't get this. Well, you see, the stumbling blocks are being removed. And this translation, I believe, is just that alone. Is the only one using that word. Yeah. And I'm not just using, I'm making a lot of changes. You know, cleaning it up, you know what I mean? For this language, for the next generation.
Are you going to be putting these funky Hebrew words in brackets with the English? Or
we talked about making it, the funky words, as you say, would be the new words. And there's only a dozen or so, maybe 15. And I'll keep using them throughout. So a person, all they have to do is just turn a few pages back and go, there's a glossary. And it's a one-page glossary. All they have to do is look at the word and go, look at that. It tells you what these words are. And that's good. I'm not going crazy with the Hebrew words. I'm just using really common everyday words that you can actually get the meaning of these words if you just stop and think by their use in the sentence. Yeah. You know, sometimes you'll hear some big scholar and they'll be talking and you'll go, wow, what was that word? Now, there are certain technical words that I have to put in there, and I have put brackets with the word in italics, indicating that it's not inspired. But it really helps the reader. And that's only in some places. It's not all over the place, but it's in certain places. Like I was just working in Yehezkel or Ezekiel, you know, and I had come across a word or two, and I had to define those words, like sun pillar. Sun pillar, what would that be? Well, and I put in italics, in brackets, obelisk.
Obelisk.
Yeah. You know, everybody knows what an obelisk is, I hope. But if they don't, they can go look that up on the internet. They can get their phone out and Google that and find out. Yeah. And fun with obelisks. Yeah, well, they're going to be broken down one day. Well, anyway, this is an amazing endeavor, and I take it very seriously because, well, who wouldn't? I mean, what? But you see, it isn't just that, hey, I'm not thumping my chest. I'm saying I'm standing on the shoulders of giants, people that have gone before us that have been, and I have been trained by these things through Yahuwah's Spirit. See, Yahusha is guiding us into all truth for us. And he said, I will speak to this people in a babbling tongue, and a strange tongue and babbling lips. And, you know, for what purpose? Well, to guide us into obedience, you know, so that we might love him and know him. So that's really a big deal. And I was struggling with a lot of the words because transliterating a lot of names, the names and places in Hebrew, which you have to bring across transliterated. You don't translate, you transliterate, you know.
Just for those who don't know, what's the difference?
Well, translating would mean that you take a word, like a name, and you translate it into the meaning in your language. You know, an example would be Baal Zephon, the Lord of Winter. So if you wrote it in your language in translation, you would write Lord of Winter. That would be Baal Zephon. But if you transliterate it, then you're using your language's letters to assemble the sound of the word in the Hebrew in your language's letters. So you're making the sound. Like we speak the name Yahuwah from 4 vowels that are written, Yod, He, Ua, He. Now, if you translated it instead of transliterated it, see, literation means to letter it, to make letters. So you transletter That's what you're doing. You're using the letters from one language and the equivalent letters that make the sound in another language. But if you translate it, then it's a feeling and an idea rather than a sound. So if you translated Yahuwah's name, it would be I was, I am, I will be. You know.
That's not a name, is it?
It's not.
Okay. So what you said somewhere a couple of weeks ago that your whole experience in Yahuwah over the last 30 years is culminating in this project. What led you to want? Were there so many things that were bothering you about the existing printed texts that you thought? Like I look at some things through my eyes, like creatively, and think, "Oh, I wish that wasn't there. I wish that wasn't here." Or, you know, if I could just get rid of that line there or that paragraph. That, like, just looking at things, I thought, is that what you're like with the text being so absorbed in it? Just, I wish I could get rid of all these things.
There's all kinds of distractions, and the words themselves can be distractions. Like I just gave you the example of the word expanse.
Yeah.
You know, it's not clear for the understanding of contemporary society to use a word like firmament or expanse. So and the word, and of course there's a lot of other things, but yeah, you're right. There are stumbling blocks that you want to remove from them. And the people that wrote before were, I'm not going to judge them and say, well, they weren't spirit-filled people. They didn't understand. But there's a learning curve involved, and it's taking centuries to get over, because the confusion of the languages of Babel has resulted in 2,600 plus languages, and English happens to be the language of business on this planet right now. Like Greek was the language of the period of the world in Yahuwah's time and Yahusha's time. So the disciples were working with. I don't think they were inspired in Greek. I think they were that their letters were translated into Greek by the 2nd century.
Yeah.
You know, but there's no real reason to believe that they were speaking Greek. I mean, some of them were illiterate men themselves. They had to dictate, and they wouldn't have been speaking in Greek. They would be speaking in Hebrew or Syriac, Aramaic, or whatever you want to call the dialect. But in fact, if you read the scriptures, indications are that they're speaking in Hebrew, and it says that in the text. Because when Paul lifted up his voice and spoke to this crowd in Hebrew, it says this, that they all became very quiet because they understood it, you know.
Well, that's an amazing task. I was amazed. I didn't realize you weren't at work as much, because I was saying to Amy, how could he be 40% through? This was supposed to take years. I thought, is the existing texts come so far that you're really only having to sort of pick out a few words and change them, or are you having to like research so many different layers? Or
it's a little of both. I mean, you're using what has been done in the past that with Yahusha's spirit is acceptable. I mean, I don't just whimsically say, well, I don't like something. If his spirit guides me and says, this is unclear, this is not making sense, then I dig into the text and I look at the Hebrew and I wrestle with the words and I go, well, what's the context? What are we looking at? So then I go, wow, that was easy. But the translators have jumbled it up because they didn't get it. They were just carrying it forward. And that's true of sometimes even the literal translations. The literal translations can sometimes, well, most often be correct. However, you can even get more literal than they are, but if you understand what's being discussed. But I don't know if you can even put this into words, but this is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to put this into words, you know, with the translation and the transliteration. And I've got a 20-page or so, maybe not quite 20. But the whole front of the thing is basically made up of a glossary and an index or contents. And and then an explanatory text where the whole project is explained and the motive behind it. The fact that Natsarim are getting involved in translation. And when you've got Natsarim translating, then you've got people that have the spirit of Yahusha living in them, that are guiding them to say the words in the right way. And it's really an amazing thing, because you're working for hours and hours and hours with Yahusha's hand on your shoulder and him pointing and directing. And it's, oh man, what a feeling, you know? And when sometimes some interruption comes along and Phyllis comes in and goes, hey, you know what? We're going to have to take care of these orders. And I'm going, oh. And I'm coming back into the room from some other place. You know, I'm physically there, but I'm not mentally there. Yeah. And I have to come down from this other place. And, you know, I've been to that place where you're handling his word, and it's very awesome. There's just so many things that pop out of the text. That a translator is somebody that has to have his spirit to do this. There's just no way that this can be done without him. And you know, all the footnotes that you see in all these, like the NIV and others, oh my, they're just trying to explain why you shouldn't be doing what, because see, they're infected with dispensational concepts. You're like, that was for them, and we're somebody else. It was, you know, and it's a different period of time, and this was the way it had to be done then. As if truth is not eternal. It's just true for a period of time. Well, isn't truth true during all eternity? You know, why would it be true during a period and then it's not true during another period? Well, you know.
Have you got any little numbers or stars or dots or footnotes or anything like that in there?
Oh, there's no dots. There's no little diacritical marks.
That'd be hard not to do, wouldn't it? To explain why. That'd be really hard.
I think there might be just a few words where I left a little apostrophe in to separate a vowel, but of course it wasn't in the Hebrew. But I left it in there because it looked appropriate, especially when two A's are next to each other. You know, not always, but in one case, Yaakov. Yeah, there's not any of that nonsense. And, you know, a sister just sent me an email, and I read it this morning. She lives in Tennessee. They're lovely people, and we share quite a bit. And this question she asked me was, there was this text of Revelation that was found and translated into Greek, and the number 666 was written with 3 Greek letters, and the 3 Greek letters were indicated with a line above them, and she was wondering, what's the line? What's this line? Well, it's a titlos, and it refers to the word title, which can be the name of something, like something that has a name, as if the letters were representing a name. And we remember from our study of Christograms, and I shared this with her, that a Christogram was a replacement word that took out the name of the Messiah and they put in a device called a Christogram, like ICXC or IHS with a bar above it. You know, that's called a titlos, that bar. And those are devices that were invented by men, made up out of thin air to indicate something that they shouldn't have even done. I mean, can you imagine being a translator and you remove the name of the person you're discussing? That's what they did. And that's the kind of thing that we had to overcome. And so anyway, I was telling her that my understanding of the 666 was simply that it's a number system of the Latin language, and the bar was just something somebody put over it. Not that it was a name of a beast, but it was the numeral system of a Latin language. And the 666 added up from the D and the C and the L and the X and the V and the I. If you add those up, you come up with the number system, and it's 666. See, the Latin language is the language of the beast.
Mm.
So that's what he was saying. It's not much more than that. It's not like, oh yeah, there's somebody coming and he's going to have this this number. I don't think so. The beast is it's numbered. He identified it, but you see, it was concealed because, you know, the fact is, Yehukanan, as we call him, or Eleazar, the one that wrote it on Patmos, was inspired to do some things in a veiled way so that people would overread it and go, well, he wasn't actually saying, you know what, the Roman Empire is going to go on and it's going to turn into something else, but it's still going to be the same evil thing that it is, and I'm going to call it the beast. You know, this was his way of doing it in a very hidden way. You know, it was, you know, just a way of saying it, and yet he wouldn't have people running up and down burning the book or the letter. They wouldn't get it. They wouldn't understand it. They'd be mystified by it. You know. But anyway, that relates to translating too.
Yeah, yeah. Have you been tempted to take out and like change all the books around, or take verse numbers out, or like all those funky design type things? What are your thoughts on all those sort of issues?
Well, I find that there were two things that happened in history. One was that the books of Scripture were rendered into chapters, which aren't that bad. They're just locating mechanisms. You can find something. And then some centuries later, a couple of centuries later, they added the verses. And I've left those as they were, because a person needs that to do their research. Yeah. So those are research tools. They don't add to the text in the sense that they change the meaning of the text. They just give a person navigational controls. So I wouldn't want to remove those. No. Yeah. And as far as the book's orders and things, whether something happened chronologically before something else, well, you'd have to start with the book of Eob, I guess, if you did that. Well, I didn't do that. So I'm just leaving it pretty much as, I kind of like the way ISR's arrangement was. Chris Koster had a real head on his shoulders. And I'm basically staying with that format, book order. I thought about moving things around and shuffling on a little bit, but as the NIV and the King James version's order declines, we're going to see the order that Chris Koster set up. I respected, because I knew Chris while he was alive, not face to face, but we were corresponding, and you know, we were kindred spirits with one another. And I just, for years, I've been, I mean, literally years and years, I've been asking Yahuwah, whatever it is that you're doing, training me, whatever it is that you're preparing me for, I hope I'm ready when it happens. And all these years, I've known that something was coming. And then this comes, and I was into this for about a week, and then it dawned on me, oh, I see now. This is what I've been prepared to do. This is it. All this study and all these things, these doctrines and strongholds and all this, you know, overcoming, and to get to the real truth and find out that love is the whole basis and the goal for what this is written down for. And it's a book of love, is what it is. It's a struggle of mankind against all adversities to overcome, to get to the truth. And the truth is simply love me and love your neighbor. And this is all it is. And everybody else, everybody that's having trouble in this book is fighting against those two things. And it's that simple. And all you have to do is to show your love for him is to keep his commandments. And they, in turn, teach you how to love your neighbor. And it's just love, you know. And this is what is going to come across. I've got it on the cover, design? Did you see the cover design?
I loved it. Yeah, it's great.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah,
I don't know if this is apparent or not, but I didn't know it either when I was designing the cover, that I was drawing from all these decades of training to keep it simple, but yet get to the very clear point about love.
So,
And that this is for another generation. It's for the next generation to understand, to pick up this book and be attracted to it, first of all. To be attracted to the book and go, what's this? Pick it up, read it, and actually understand it with the goal of love in mind.
Yeah.
Instead of thou shalt not. See, the Satanists, they don't get that. And the people that are atheists don't get that either. Because, see, they want to do their thing. And we understand that this is an owner's manual of how our behavior needs to reflect love. You know, it's an owner's manual. I mean, the owner wrote it.
Yeah.
For us.
Yeah. Will you be including any of the other, what we understand to be inspired books, like, what are they? Enoch or Jubilees or things like that? Will you be including any of those things, or sticking to the traditional?
They're not going to be in there. They're just going to be the traditional. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm sorry to say that I would love to do that, but I haven't, that's not my calling right now.
Yeah.
That may be other people's callings. See, that's what, when this project first came on board, I was approached by a sister that said that I needed to do a translation. And I said, wow. At the time that she said this, I was not ready.
Yeah.
And I said, well, perhaps you should do something. So she hired a seminary student to go through the text, and she came out with this. Well, she didn't even know what to call it, and I pondered that too. I said, well, why don't we think of it as the Besorah, the message from the Creator, the message from Yahusha, and we know that all Scripture is about Him. So I said, why don't we call it the Besorah of Yahusha? And she did, and then that came out, and then they were depleted. She gave most of them away, but anyway, the fact is, when she ran out of funds, she's kaput. She has no way to make any more. So I decided that after Yahusha freed me, I said, hey, there's things opening up here. I'm finding time. So I'd endeavor to come out with the revised Besorah of Yahusha. And now I'm doing it. With his blessing, I'm going to be able to print these. I haven't got any money except for one person came forward and they donated a sizable amount, but it's going to take an incredible, a larger amount than that. But it isn't on one person's back. I mean, if people want to support this, they're going to have to get behind it. But anyway, the printing expense is going to be the next hurdle, but I'm not putting my mind on that. I'm not even going there, because I know Yahusha will take care of something like this if he's wanting it to happen. But I'm working on the text, making it clear. And instead of putting words like in Yeshayahu or Isaiah 14, around verse 12, I think it is, there's a name in some of the traditional ones. You'll run across this thing in verse 14, in chapter 14 of Yeshayahu or Isaiah. It's studying the fallen being that we some people call Lucifer, and they see it in the translation as Lucifer, but it's actually Hallel ben Shakar, and I'm putting that in the text. I am transliterating that. So people are going to be reading verse 12 of chapter 14 and go, Hallel ben Shakar. And then I'm going to put in italics what it means,
I see. So if you translate that, you get Lucifer, but if you transliterate it, you get Hillel ben Shakar.
Well, Lucifer is not even a loose translation.
Okay.
Lucifer is a Latin word. You see, for over 1,200 years, the Latin Vulgate, what's that? Well,
is that tongue?
This guy, Yeah, it means a language. Vulgate.
Yeah.
Yeah, Vulgate. The Latin Vulgate was a translation done by a fellow they called Jerome. His real name was Hieronymus.
Oh, I remember him.
Yeah. Anyway, he did this translation, and it took him from 391 to 403. I mean, it took him 12 years. 13 if you count the 0. Anyway, what we're looking at there is a long period of time, and the Latin Vulgate was like the King James, so it was so popular that nobody had it, I mean, except a few people, but you know, the priests and the bishops, but they had transcribed a number of them. But anyway, this is after Constantine, you know, and anyway, the thing of it is, it was written in Latin. Okay, so the Latin Vulgate was popular for over 1,200 years, and it was even more so than the King James. It was the thing, you know. And then along comes the Reformation, and all these different translations started to emerge, like Wycliffe and Tyndale, and they translated into the common language at that time, being English. And along comes King James. Of course, now the Geneva translation was showing people far too much. It was explaining things too well. So King James, being Catholic-minded, wanted to control that and separate the Nicolaitanes from the people. So the lords over the people would, like words like church were not even in Tyndale's translation. And they used the word ecclesia, the congregation. The congregation is what they used. So the people, all the people, there weren't any hierarchies, but King James wanted the idea of the hierarchy to be emphasized, as if the hierarchy was the real church. And so by this distinction, they burned Tyndale at the stake for his error, because he refused to use the word church and instead used the word congregation, which is what the word really should be. Because it was, you know, basically wiping out the authoritarian, totalitarian control of the hierarchy, you see, which Yahusha hates. Yeah. So they've lost their control now, because there's people like you and me and other translators and people that are working and teaching the truth. So we're on the internet, and we're able to tell people the actual real word, you know. And of course, some people are offended because we use the word circus. But you need to get over that.
It is.
You know, you need to get over it.
I loved it.
Like, come on. It's just a, you know, a Greek word.
Haven't you ever been to a circus and a church?
Yeah. I've been there.
There's clowns, there's elephants, there's
people dressed up.
Yeah, the same thing.
Yeah, they're actors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say something. So if you're changing, or not you changing, but if you're putting out a new version, why are you sticking with the old name? Did you think of did you have any other names, or
the Besorah of Yahusha is most clearly what it is.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah.
Because he revealed that in the text. See, the word Bible, for example, is not on the cover. It's not inside the text. Where is it coming from? Well, it was stamped on the cover of most translations, but it's actually the name of a pagan idol. Well, it's spelled B-Y-B-L-O-S, or B-Y-B-L-I-A, which was a deity, and it was in the city of the same name. And they made parchments from that city, and it was a primary export from that city. So they started calling document paper, you know, paper, by this term for the city where it was produced. So wherever this parchment was produced, they referred to the parchment itself by the name of the city. And in the city, which was named after this pagan deity, was this female fertility deity's temple. So why would we use that word to describe Yahuwah's word? That's a lot of people don't even know that. But I was interested 20-something years ago. Well, why is this on the cover? You know, because I've always been an investigator. And I said, well, why is this word here? I started looking at the etymology of the word. And that's how I discovered. And then I discovered that it wasn't in the text. Paul, in one place in the book of Acts, I think it is, talks about, he talks about the parchments. He says, bring me a robe or a blanket or something, and also the parchments. Well, the parchments, you know, and in the Greek translation, you have that similar word, but it's only used like once, you know. But why would it be on the cover? Well, it needs to not be there at all. Look at things like this. Look at translations like this. Think of a high mountain, and then you've got all these rocks. And then up at the top, there's this pure water that's just, for some reason, bubbling out. And it comes down and it bounces off a rock, and then it bounces off another rock. Well, think of each time it comes in contact with a rock, it picks up a little mud. It gets a little dirtier. Well, each rock or crevice or whatever the water passes through, it starts out being pure. That's the Hebrew. And then it hits Greek, and then it gets a little mud in it.
Yeah.
And then it comes slamming down and hits Latin. Ooh. And then it goes into German. And and then it hits this giant language, which is literally a river of different rivers actually coming in, called English.
Yeah.
You know, it's got the pure Hebrew, it's got the Greek, it's got the Latin, it's got French and German and all this, and it's all muddy, and you can't even see through it. You're going, what? I can't see the fish.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be nice if you could just look down into the crystal clear water and see the fish? You know, well, that's what I'm trying to accomplish, I think metaphorically. But as each, you know, with each pass over a rock or a crevice, this pure water has become muddy. And we want to try to clean it up, you know. It's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. So for those who might wonder, where are you getting to get a more pure understanding of the translation? What texts what's your foundation of your text? Are you just starting from scratch and you wouldn't be looking up every single word, would you? You obviously have some kind of, otherwise you'd be spending months just on one sentence. What's your most trustworthy text that you're running off?
Well, I'm working with the best one that I've been able to find was Chris Koster's uncopyrighted version, and that would be the best one. That is a spine, but it's by far not anything but a guide. It's just a guide, and I'm replacing a lot of words. Like for example, I gave you the word expanse. It's not that. It's space.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm taking transliterations and putting them in, but I'm also I'm consulting this one, which is called the NIV. Now it isn't an NIV. That's the NIV in the column, but the actual Hebrew, it's an interlinear. Okay, and I don't even trust the English words below every time. I look up the Hebrew words, but it's called the Interlinear Hebrew English Kohlenberger, 4 volumes in one, and it goes from Genesis through Malachi, which is Bereshith through Malachi. And then I've got the Greek also, but I don't necessarily trust a lot of the ideas that people have about, you know, the discoveries made of Hebrew in the Natsarim writings. See, I'm calling than the Natsarim writings, rather than the New Testament,
Oh, okay.
if that's appropriate. If that's
Oh,
appropriate.
yeah.
The Natsarim were not really around until Yahushua's time, so
Yeah.
I'm referring to them as not the Natsarim writings.
That's better than Messianic. Yeah, that's much better. Love
Yeah.
that.
Well, yeah. Yeah, Messianic is kind of a messy word.
Yeah, I reckon. Yeah. So, speaking of Natsarim writings, are you sticking with the order of those books, or are you going to kick the
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm using that order. Yeah.
right.
I thought about, several years ago, that if we could get the order more appropriate, we should start with the Book of Acts right after, you know, like if we were. In fact, I'm not even not sure. I'm not finished yet. I mean, I have yet that ahead of me.
Mm.
In fact, the Nazarene writings are still yet ahead of me, but I'm still thinking about them. But you could start with Matthew and Mark, and then Luke, and then Yehukanan, and then jump right into Acts
Mm.
instead of I don't know. What do you think?
Well, that's actually what we normally do, isn't it? Matthew, Mark, Luke, John,
Yeah,
Acts. I just
yeah.
meant, would you put the 3 or 4 books that are at the end before Revelation? Would you like? Because people go straight from Acts straight into Paul, which is kind of more complicated than at the end when you got your 1 John, 2 John, 3 John, 1 Peter, 2 Peter, James, all those ones who walked with Yahusha.
All right.
Some people would argue that they should be read up the front because they're foundational. They're easy to understand.
I'm listening to that. That makes sense.
Well, you
In other
wrote
words,
that.
maybe.
You wrote that in Fossilized, I think, somewhere, didn't
Yeah,
you?
I did. I did. And I'm going to have to go back and look at that.
Because
And
people get hit with Paul straight up, and that's a bit. They haven't gone through the ringer of the foundations, and they start forming all these weird thoughts from Paul's stuff.
yeah, that's true. I'm glad you reminded me of that
I don't know.
before I get into it.
Yeah.
But the Book of Acts is a problem for some people right off the bat. But
Why?
when they haven't had the foundation, I know they've read the 4 memoirs by the emissaries that explain the actual activities of Yahusha. And then you've got the activities of Yahusha in his body in the Book of Acts. What would you recommend?
Oh, I don't know. I just based on what you wrote earlier, I thought you had said something like you'd go Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts, James, 1 John, 2 John, 3 John, or Peter. So Peter's in there somewhere. Like those 3 guys come up the front as well,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have Paul at the end. Like you have Paul later on. Which
like instead of jumping into Romans right after Acts, because
yeah.
Romans is going to make people understand some things, and then other things they're going to, because of the traditional teachings.
Mm.
Yeah. So if we could keep Romans and 1 Corinthians and 2 Corinthians and Galatians and Ephesians and all those after 1st and 2nd and 3rd John, and
Yeah, because he's talking about circumcision in one book, and he's talking about end times in another book. Whereas James, Peter, and John, they're all talking about love and just obey the covenant and love one another.
Yeah, it really went wrong with a lot of that, and I think it does influence the reader if they're going right through. I don't know that most people just read from the beginning all the way right through, but it would be helpful for the person that's exposed to it for the first time to understand that. Of course, the word selection is going to be involved too. When you're reading a translation of Romans or Galatians, especially if you're reading about the law and you don't know what law he's referring to, the law of circumcision is what the book is about. Galatians is explaining that. But they infer that the law is the 10 Commandments, as if it's been done away with.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of conflicts. But the book order is something I might deal with, you know, when I get to that.
Well, I love the name of it, Natsarim Writings. That's much better.
Natsarim Writings, yeah.
What do you call the old? What do you call that? Just scriptures?
I'm not naming it anything. I'm just what the name of the book is, and I don't separate. See,
No.
I mean, Yahusha said that the word can't be separated. It can't be divided. So we don't divide it. It just flows right from Malachi straight into Matthew, just as it should. You know, it explains the coming of Yahusha right after the 4th chapter of Malachi, and it explains how we're supposed to prepare. You know, how do you prepare for the coming? Well, remember the Torah with Moshe, my servant. That's Malachi, and then right into Matthew and the coming of the Messiah, and announcing his coming, and it just makes perfect sense. And I would leave Matthew, Mark, Luke, and Yehukanan in their proper order.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big, very dangerous thing what they did, putting that line down the middle, wasn't it? Old Testament, New Testament, like, it's really just telling people to, don't worry about this bit, we got a new bit.
Yeah, that's the dispensational.
Why have an old car when you can have a new one? You know, it's just, don't worry about all that stuff.
And then they call it testament, you know, which...
What does that mean?
That has to do... Well, that's a scary thing. I don't want to offend anybody, but the word testes is something that they would put their hand under the thigh, and they would make an oath, and of course they were swearing upon the future generations of the beings that were still in the man that was being sworn an oath to, and so you get the word testament from that, which it is not. This is not a testament. This is a covenant, you know. But there isn't. There's a lot of trouble between understanding what an old and a new is. The word new is really renewed. And we've come to learn that through our brother Chris Koster. I don't know where he got that, but except Yahusha revealed that to him. So I don't know that Chris had nearly as much information as we have now, but he's brought a lot of light into the understanding. So the renewed covenant is with Israel, you know, and the house of Israel and the house of Yehuda. It says that, you know, in Yirmiyahu chapter 31. And the Natsarim are involved too, because if you look at verse 6 of chapter 31 of Yirmiyahu, he discusses the Natsarim will rise on the hills of Ephraim. And here we are, you know, and it's a wonderful thing to know you are. But here. Phyllis has been braiding her hair on the sides here.
I saw that. Nice, sister. She can't hear me. Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah, the whole covenant thing's fascinating. We're halfway through a book that was recommended to us that we got from you guys. What's it called? The Covenants by Todd Bennett.
Todd Bennett.
Yeah, and we're just the other night we read the Abraham one. That was amazing.
Yeah.
About the seed. It was all about the circumcision and the seed. The reason they couldn't get pregnant was because he hadn't made the covenant. He wasn't circumcised. The seed had to pass through the circumcised organ into the circumcised, not circumcised, but into the woman who had a name change as well. They were covenant people. The minute they had the covenant, they produced the seed, like the Isaac, you know, Yitzhak. It's just, he goes right. It's so interesting. I'm only halfway through, but we're sort of trying to get close together. Amy and I just sort of reading it together. So we don't get to it every day, but it's yeah. And you got 2 more books from him now, haven't you? You got the Scriptures and the Appointed Times, and have to get there. Do you get a chance to read all these books you get in?
I only have time to scan them, you know, a lot of people will dismiss a a book because of some doctrinal disagreement that they might personally have about something. And I don't do that. I pick out the gems, and I let the chaff blow on by. You know, where somebody has an impression about something, and a brother might be writing a book, and this is going to be true of me too. I mean, people that don't agree with a particular thing, let's not throw the whole book out. Because if half of the things in fossilized customs happen to be true, then we're in a world of hurt.
Yeah, definitely. Wow.
Yes. Oh, I also wanted to thank an anonymous friend that sent some support to us, even while we're in decline. And you know who you are. It was here in the United States. Someone sent some help. We really, and I'm sure you're feeling the economic downturn too. But you know, I know Yahusha's doing things. I'm not discouraged. You know, when you think of David and Goliath, Daoud and Goliath, you know, the little guy, the teenager, and this huge giant warrior, and he's a shepherd, and he's protected his sheep, and he knows Yahuwah, and he's the psalmist, and this young boy's skills involve a harp and a stick and some rocks and a sling, and he knows that Yahusha, or Yahuwah, is with him. So that's the thing that gets you through any valley of darkness. So as you see something going down, you don't necessarily have to worry, because Yusuf was thrown into a pit by his 11 brothers. And the fact is, they were thinking about killing him. And then I think it was, wasn't it Reuben that said, let's not shed the boy's blood. I mean, he was the youngest of their brothers, and you know, so they just decided to sell him to some Ishmaelites, and he goes off, and for what seems like a few decades, goes through just horrible times, and then he's lifted up in order to save a great salvation. Many people are saved. I was reading about that as I was doing the translation. His name was Zanepha Pania, or something like that, which properly translated in Egyptian would be Savior of the world. And then later on in the text, it actually says, "You have saved our lives." You know, and I'm going, wow, that's very good.
A lot of shadows or metaphors pointing towards Yahusha there, isn't it? As far
Exactly.
as servant, and the fact that he kind of died, certainly died to his father, and then was kind of in a way he was resurrected. When Israel met him again.
So what you intended for evil, Yahuwah used for good. So while I personally interpret this attack on me and my reputation, I see that I'm in a pit, and I'm going to be sold to somebody else and have to serve them. I don't know what this is all about. I don't know how I could relate to it at all, but we all do. Every one of our lives goes through these same metaphoric periods. And but whatever somebody intended for evil towards you or others or me, it can be used for good. And that's the thing that makes everything worthwhile, because of one single fact: Yahuwah is with you. When Yahuwah is with you, he goes through the dark periods with you. He's actually closer to you during those times than you might even realize. But I'm very excited. I'm motivated to be given the time. But something good is on the outside. You're going through the birthing canal, and you're going to go into a completely new reality that is just wondrous. And
amazing. I was always taught through these times that Yahushua's always trying to get our attention, because he's he wants to be that close. He's that jealous. Wants to be that involved. So when things get tight, or you feel that pressure, or even if you feel at times that he's not quite there, like, where is he? You're always trying to find Yahusha in your day. Like he's always trying to get your attention. That's what I was always taught. And I always keep that in my mind. Where's Yahusha?
It relates to the test.
Yeah.
The test that we all have to agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and how you respond is everything. I mean, a lot of people would just get angry, and lose heart, and that's what everybody was doing in Israel when Goliath would come out and challenge them, and they would just move back, look out. But Daud, the little boy, was saying, What are you doing? Look at this guy. You're going to let him stand there and say that? And he got mad. Yeah. The spirit of Yahuwah was in him. And he said, man, look what I'm going to have to do. And so he goes out there and he gets permission. And he gets out there and he wipes him out. Yeah. He doesn't even break a sweat because Yahuwah is with him. That's great. I think of that a lot. You know. I haven't even gotten to the Psalms yet. Oh my. It's going to be a treasure trove. Yeah. I'm 40% done, but yeah. I'm working on it. Yeah.
Well, that's amazing, going through all your little discoveries as you're going through the text. That must be just mind-blowing. The things you'd be finding.
It is. It is. I'm having a lot of sleepless nights because the discoveries are just mind-blowing. Yeah. And just little things that just open up a completely new perspective. Yeah. And I'm putting them in just certain places, you know what this is? And then a little tilted, italicized, bracketed interpretation. And just a little one-line thing, not a long dissertation. I mean, I know that many of the texts, they use a lot of words. I'm not doing that. I'm just saying this word refers to this, and this is what's happening, and I give a text about when Yahusha said this. Like there's a place in Yehezkel or Ezekiel where it talks about a green tree and a dry tree, and Yahusha is the one that said that too. So you're going, well, wait a minute. What's the green tree and the dry tree? What does it mean? So I'm referring to those two things. They actually reflect a circumstance, and it's the context that it reveals the information.
That's probably much better, isn't it? Because if something's in brackets, you kind of read it along with it rather than having to put your finger in that spot there and go to the back here. What's that number and where's the... Like, if it's all flowing together, that's much better.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to make it, I mean, Yahusha is going to make it in such a simple way that it's going to have a cleanness to it. Yeah. That's going to be bringing it over into these babbling languages that we have, this English. And it's just a wonderful thing to be able to see this. But last night I was so excited just over the little simple thing, taking the word expanse and changing it to the word space, which is all it is. That's just one. Another one, like in Yeshayahu chapter 6, the word Alma is disputed over. Alma, a lot of people want to argue about it being, it's not a virgin. Yeah, it is. But I use the word Alma in the text. So that let them have their argument.
So it's an Alma, a virgin?
An Alma would be a virgin, yes. Okay. In that day and time, there was no way that it would have been possible for her to have been with a man. Okay. A maiden was not, in that culture, exposed to a man. You went to that woman's father, or that young girl's father, and asked permission to take her as your Isha, or your wife. And that wife was not, you wouldn't even think of taking a woman that just wanted to be with you into your tent or your home. You go to her father and get permission. And if the father wasn't there, you'd go to her oldest brother. Because you know what? If they get offended you're dead.
Yeah.
You remember what happened to that pagan,
Yeah.
that guy that found this girl named Dinah,
Defiled
and
her.
young girl, yeah, defiled her. So two of the heads of the tribes went over there and they tricked them into everybody getting circumcised. And then while they were at their weakest point, they killed them all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to mess with that. You want to do these things properly, And that's what it takes. Marriage is something that I've been contemplating for a long, long time. And the government doesn't have the power to join two people together in marriage. Even the people themselves don't have the power, nor does any organized circus. Only Yahuwah can unite two people in the bond of marriage. And it isn't done through any other earthly authority. And but it is something that, and it isn't archaic. It's something proper that you go to the person's oldest living relative, if it's a brother or if the father's not alive, you ask permission to take this woman's hand and guide her through her life until death do you part. And that's what marriage is. It isn't standing in a ceremony. That's something, the ceremonial idea of a marriage is a Catholic invention. It's a governmental thing. The government just came in and did this, and because of the state and the religious bond, and Satan is usurping Yahuwah's place, as he always does. But the man and the woman, they make a covenant together between themselves before Yahuwah, under the authority of Yahuwah, and then that's consummated, not in a ceremony, but I mean, the procedure is really simple, but when Samson or Shimshon went and saw a woman that he wanted as a wife, he went to his father and asked him to get her for him. And that was done sometimes, as it was done in Abraham's case. Abraham sent, because Abraham was kind of old, so he sent his oldest dependable servant, Eleazar, to go out and find a girl for his son to marry. And I don't think he ever saw any ceremonies.
No.
That was added later. Even the wedding feast of in Yahusha's time, when they were having a wedding feast, it was like a week long. And it wasn't so much that people were sitting under a kuppah and walking around in a circle around the bride. Around the groom.
Yeah.
The bride goes around the groom with the mother-in-law, in a circle. Well, what's that? That's borrowed from pagans. Circumambulation. That's not scriptural.
No.
It's something added. So we have a little, bad thing, a little dirt, mud in the water.
Well, that's amazing, brother.
Ooh.
We'll have to catch up when you're further on in your scriptures. Talk a bit more about it.
Okay. Well, it's a learning process. Yeah. It is. And it's something you have to be taking with great care.
How are you going with the next boot camp? The enemy thing, is that on hold for a little while? Or?
It's going to be on hold, I'm afraid. I'm still taking notes. I've got sheets that and I've got, my bedroom is got loads of things. I wake up in the middle of the night and get writing notes down. But the enemy is exposed in this one.
Yeah.
And I'm working on it, but it's gonna be a while. If that's okay with you, I've got to get this project going. But what else is anything new with you? I know you're planning on reading some of the Natsarim.
Yeah, I might try and get a couple of them. Well, maybe Matthew, Mark, and Luke. No. Yeah. Adam's already done Matthew, so Matt at Yahoo. Maybe Mark, Luke, and Yahukanon. If I can get those done, then we've got the whole Natsarim scriptures. the whole Natsarim. Yeah.
That's amazing.
And
Yeah, Revelation's done,
Mm,
and Matthew done. Adam read those.
yeah.
So now we just do the ones in between.
Yeah.
It's going to be a great package.
Yeah. Amazing.
A lot of people have to take long drives when they're going to and from work, and to just hear the pure word read as it should be with the name included, it's just so wonderful and clean, you know.
So you won't have to be doing any more live seminars because you got no venue.
Well, right at the moment, for the next foreseeable future, I don't know when Yahuwah will change that, but let's say for the next 2 to 3 months, I don't. And we just do something on the internet here, and we do some get-togethers. But I think this was all part of a plan.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, I'm just following Yahusha's lead. And things are going to change, of course. I mean, you know, just look at what happened to Yusuf and Mitzrayim.
Yeah.
Things happen for the good of all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just keep rolling with it.
Just keep rolling with it. Never fear. Do not fear, because fear is the worst thing.
Yeah. Well, I love you, mate. It's wonderful catching up.
Love you too. So I'll see you next time then.
Yeah, wonderful. And good on you for what you're doing with the translation.
Keep praying for it. And we can talk by email too about some of those ideas that you had about the book order, and remind me of what I had already written about it, because I'd like to go back and review that, and we'll see what we can come up with.
Oh, well, Yahush will tell you when you get to those books.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to do what I'm doing right now, what's in front of me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wonderful. Love you, mate.
Love you.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
I say I love Yahusha. I love him. His living water. I love it. Don't you sidestep his words, just obey and believe. Don't you sidestep his words, or his heart you will grieve. Well, he looked at my broken life. He said, I'll give mine for yours. So I accepted with broken heart. For my sin he ignores. He said, I called you, I chose you, I'll take you for my bride, and you'll be blessed, protected. My spirit will be with you evermore. I'll clothe you with my love. I say, I love Yahusha. Oh yeah, I love him. Oh, his living water. Oh yeah, I love it. Don't you sidestep his words, just obey and believe. Don't you sidestep his words, or his heart you will grieve. As I glanced at his hand, I saw wounds I had caused. I felt my heart melt within me, and its beating had paused. He said, I've saved you, I love you, my harvest is so close, and you will see it with others, one body in the Ruach HaKodesh, one body in Kodesh. I say, I love Yahusha. Oh yeah, I love him. Oh, his living water. Oh yeah, and I love him. So don't you sidestep his words, just obey and believe. Don't you sidestep
sidestep his words or his heart you will grieve. His heart you will grieve. I love Yahusha. Oh, oh, oh. I love him. Oh yeah. His living water. Oh yeah. I love him. Oh, 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 I love Yahusha. Oh yeah, I love him.